Joe Biden.
Imagine being 8, 10, 12, 13 years old and say, guess what, we're going to go see Joe Biden. I have to negotiate. Like I said next to you, I know him too. That's why they probably have to do this. Anyway, hey folks, thank you very, very much. And Mayor, thank you for that nice introduction. Look, I'm going to be very brief in my opening here because I want to get to some questions. But, you know, as you all know, this is not because I'm running, but because of the nature of where we are as a country. This may be the most critical election any one of us have ever voted. And I really mean, not because I'm the candidate, but because of the man who occupies the White House. We have never quite seen anything like this before. And it's incredibly damaging to our standing at home and around the world. And I want to tell you, I'm running for president for 3 basic reasons. The first is, and I meant it when I said it, is that I think we have to restore the soul of this country, restore dignity to the White House. Because the fact is that it's not only dividing this country the way that appeals to white supremacists and dividing people based on race and religion and based on ethnicity, but it's hurting us around the world. It is literally causing us his embrace of dictators and people like Putin has actually caused us great damage in terms of our alliances around the world. And we can handle, God willing, 4 years of Donald Trump's destructive actions at home and abroad, but 8 years of him would be a fundamental change in the nature of who we are, at least for several generations. I really mean that. And so, you know, the reason I decided I was going to run this time, because I had not planned on doing that. I worked like the devil. I did over 84 events for Hillary after my son passed, and although I have to admit to you, I had planned on running before that, but she would have been a great president, but what happened was that when I saw those folks coming out of the fields down in Virginia, in Charlottesville, carrying torches and their faces contorted. I mean, you got to remember that scene, carrying Nazi flags and spewing hate, accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. And when asked David Duke, the Grand Kleagle, the former Grand Kleagle of the Klan, I asked him, he said, well, this is why we elected him. This is why we elected him. The young woman got killed. And what happened after that? The press said, can you tell me what you think, Mr. President? And he said, and I quote, they're very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said something like that. You'd have to go all the way back to Andrew Jackson and President Johnson, who was impeached before the Civil War. I mean, for real. And folks, I said then we have to restore the soul of the country. And I meant it. The second reason why, the soul of the country, I find, most of you don't know much about my state. My state is, everybody thinks it's a big industrial state. The largest town in my state is 85,000 people. The next largest is 20,000 people, and all the rest is much smaller than that. We're on what's called the Delmarva Peninsula, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. Agriculture is our single biggest industry. It happens to be mostly broiler chickens. But the point is that, by the way, it's a $5 billion industry. If you take the whole peninsula, we're as big as y'all, as they say. But folks, it's just basic, what I find is that most of the way we were all raised, I suspect you were raised here the same way I was, you're taught that, as my mother would say, if you said half the things the president said, you get your mouth washed out with soap. But all kidding aside, it's just not the lack of decency, the way we talk and treat people. But the real soul of America is the middle class. And the middle class is in trouble. and particularly working folks as well. Because look, the middle class is basically being able to send your kids somewhere when they go out to a park, they come home safely, to go to a school where they're going to be safe, that they do well in school, they'll be able to go on beyond school, and if they do, you can figure out how to pay to get them there. Being able to take home your mom after dad passes away and hope your children never have to take care of you. And have a little breathing room. Well, guess what? Farmers here and other places around the country don't have any breathing room. There's no breathing room left. Very little breathing room. Debt is way, way, way up. Why? Why is it happening? Well, it's happening because of the ridiculous policies he engaged in, and well as what he, in terms of foreign policy, in terms of trade policy. He's gone after the Chinese the exact wrong way. It has nothing to do with the fact that we had a deficit, or whether we had a deficit in terms of agricultural trade. The fact he should be going after China for is they steal our intellectual secrets. They're engaged in trade policy overall that is designed to take over America's, if you have to invest in China, and you're going to go invest in China, you got to make sure you have a 51% Chinese partner. And they're still in the profit. They're still in the profits. They're thinking all short term. And so we got to get a lot tougher, but not the way he has. Last thing I'll say before I get to questions is, look, where I come from, the worst thing you see is worry about is your kids deciding they have to leave to go get a job somewhere else, leaving everything they know. That happened to me years and years and years ago when I was a kid, when my dad had to leave because there were no jobs. But my point is that we, in fact, we have an opportunity to make rural America. 20% of the folks in America live in rural America. But the fact is that we have an opportunity to make it really prosperous, to bring people along in big ways. Start off, we're going to get into this, I hope, but start off by making sure that we understand what's happening in rural America. Hospitals are closing all across rural America. And, and the lack of, not just, 60% of the people in a serious accident who die in rural America. They don't die in the cities, they don't die in the big towns. They die in rural America because of lack of access to health care. And look what's going on, the lack of health care for specialty services, for women, a whole range of things. And so there's a lot we can do. In addition to that, we have to invest in rural America. We invest in it because we can do it and make the place grow. And everybody grows when it happens. Kids in your schools and my schools in the southern part of the state, although we've made progress in Delaware, they don't have high-speed broadband. They're in a situation where they, in fact, are behind all the kids in the other schools around America. They're not in that circumstance. They're not able to do that. Businesses, you all decide when you're going to sell whatever you're growing on your farm. You should be able to make that decision now immediately by having high-speed broadband. We, in fact, in a position where, look what's happening in rural America in terms of our schools. A lot of schools in rural America are, in fact, what they call Title I schools. Schools where there is average lower income. Well, look what we're doing. We're missing a gigantic opportunity that's totally within our capacity to do it, to, in fact, educate our children better. We learned one thing. If a child gets to go to school at age 3, 4, and 5, in addition to kindergarten, it increases your University of Iowa and all your great universities here point out, it exponentially increases the prospect they'll do well, go through school, go through high school, go beyond high school, there's dealing with a trade, or going on a community college and beyond. It's simple. It's simple. We invest in kids that can do well. We have a lot of Title I schools where I'm from as well, and what's happened? We say that, well, Title I schools, we don't have an advanced placement test. The kids in rural America are as bright and competent and capable of any kids in America. And we don't treat it that way. How many advanced placement courses do we have? How many times do we challenge our children? They can step up to it when they're challenged. So there's so many things we can do if we invest in America. We invest in small towns. There's no reason why when we build all this infrastructure we plan on building, I'm going to build, I promise you, and I think other Democrats, if they got elected, would do as well. I'm going to build. what happens? You can build these communities, and by the way, they're safe, they're healthy, they in fact generate the kind of ethic that in fact America is all about. And so there's a lot to do. Rather than talk about it much more, I just say two things. The next president of the United States is going to inherit a divided nation. A divided nation. As well as a world in disarray. And with all due respect, there's going to be no time for on-the-job training. There's not going to be any time to do that. And you take a look at, and it's not a criticism of my colleagues, but the people I'm running that are the 847 people seeking the nomination. The folks seeking the nomination, they've done a lot of good things. But I'm the only one that's ever passed major pieces of legislation across the board. Whether it was Violent Against Women Act or making sure we had the Recovery Act for $90 billion and everything in between. The Chemical Weapons Treaty. They're thinking, I'm not like boom, 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 but the point is this is what I've been doing my whole career. Bringing Democrats and Republicans together to get things passed, and when the Republicans were in agreement, let's go out and just beat them. Not a joke, not a jest, I mean it's sincerely. Go out and take the case to the community. Presidents are supposed to persuade, be able to persuade. And folks, it's something I've done my whole career. And it has to be able to be done now. I know my colleagues who are seeking the nomination say, well, that was the old days. Yeah, Biden did all those things, but things have changed. Guess what? If we can't unite the country, we're in deep, deep, deep trouble. The system calls for principled compromise. There is no way in which you can unite the country without reaching a consensus. And I said that's what I've done my whole career. The second reason is the last thing we need, there's going to be no shot for on-the-job training nationally. Whoever wins next better be able to command the world stage, stand up and make sure everybody in the world, leaders, know who he or she is, and he knows who they are. So there's no kidding. Putin knows who I am. By the way, that's why I spend money. Vladimir Putin doesn't want me to be president. That's why he's spending millions of dollars on these bots they have on, telling lies about me. He's taking pictures of people. His guys are going out there and taking pictures of decent people, and I have no idea the picture's going up. And then underneath it having things saying Joe Biden's this, that, or the other thing. They never said it. Finally, Facebook took all those things down. But the point is, they're spending a lot of money because they don't want me to be president. He knows me, and he knows I know him well. And so, number two, I've also learned that Kim Jong-un, the thug in North Korea, doesn't want me to be president either. The official state news agency put out, I don't know if you saw it, it was in the press, I guess it was last week, Joe Biden is a rabid dog and he should be beat to death with a stick. Okay. I consider that a high compliment coming from him, who had his uncle's brains blown out sitting across the table from him. Look, and lastly, I learned one more thing, and you've seen it in all these hearings. Donald Trump doesn't want me to be the nominee. And he's risking total impeachment because of that. And folks, look, I think Donald Trump knows what's going to happen if I'm the nominee. He's going to lose.
Yay!
He's going to lose. That's my moment, sir. I don't know, I'll hush you up and take whatever questions you want.